Hello. Here we are, folks. If you're watching this beginning, you're watching the recording. I'm waiting for people to join me before we start here. If you are watching this live, I suggest you are muted right now if you're watching this live. And if you want your privacy, confidentiality kept private, I would not comment or say anything on this seminar and Q&A that we have, just because it's going to be posted on YouTube. So, if you want to ask me a question and don't want people to know who you are, just type it into the chat. And I would suggest also perhaps changing your Zoom name so it's only your first name. Of course, there's plenty of people who are willing to talk live on this, and you're welcome to talk live. As always, I encourage an informal, group session here or seminar. I'm going to share a few really, I think, simple things that help us. I want to say improve our meditation practice, as overblown as that might be, or as cliche as that might be. I think there's a lot of value in simplifying meditation for a lot of us because it confuses us. So I'm going to be sharing that. And once I've shared that general approach, which I've gone over before, and I went over, rather thoroughly in a video a couple weeks ago, but once I've gone over that general approach, I'll open it up to questions that anybody might have. The other thing to note here is here in the Boston area, we have a tornado warning, which is very unusual. I do not think a tornado is going to be plastering the streets here, but there's a storm advisory, meaning that there's a chance I'll lose internet, at least momentarily. If that happens, the Zoom meeting, I think, will continue, and I'll just try to log back on. Should work, so just stay online and we should get back online, hopefully within a minute or two if that occurs. If it doesn't and we lose each other, well, it's just the way it was meant to be, isn't it? So let's get rolling. Like to start on time here and pack a lot in. Thank you all for joining live if you are live. We're not going to start with the meditation today because we're basically going to be talking about a way that you can meditate that is relatively easy. And that's going to be the meditation. Some of you are already going to be very familiar with what I share. And for some of you, this is going to seem like a brand new approach to meditation. Now, what I'm going to describe to you, if you're well-versed in a particular approach or brand of meditation, it might not even sound like meditation. And that's fine. I don't really care if you think it's meditation or not. What I care about is you can utilize this tool if you want to, especially if you're one of the many, many people, I would say the majority of people who want to incorporate meditation into their lives, but have not found really a satisfying way of doing so. I would have grouped myself in that camp in many ways for many years. I got into Zen meditation when I was like 17, I think. And I meditated every day, give or take a few days, maybe when I was sick, for like the next 10 or 12 years, something like that. And I spent time at a couple Zen centers, including spending a year at the Sonoma Mountain Zen Center, which is a great place if you're into practicing Zen in like an American down-to-earth spiritual community. So I was a meditator, and the type of Zen meditation that I did, in a way, wasn't supposed to be satisfying. But what happened for me is I reached my late 20s, and I began to question, why am I doing this? And I had questioned that for a while, but it started to truly feel like a waste of time. And what happened for me is I was on vacation with my wife before we were married. We were on vacation, and I was like, I'm just not going to meditate. I initially said I'm not going to meditate during this day of the vacation, and then I ended up not meditating for any of the vacations. We were gone for like a week, and I got back from our vacation and continued not to meditate, doing Zen meditation, Zazen, where you're very formal, upright, straight, seated, just sitting. Just sitting is enlightenment, with Zazen. And at least in the Soto branch, which is what I practiced. And I got a lot out of that approach for a number of years, but it seemed overly militant and ultimately unnecessary for my life. Like I said, when I reached, the end of my 20s, and when I stopped, it was very interesting in the sense that nothing in my life changed. My life did not get worse by not meditating. In a way, I would say my life got better because I had more time. I meditated for at least a half an hour, if not an hour each day. I didn't feel as much pressure when I got up in the morning to meditate, to do Zazen. But there were no big shifts or anything like that. So I thought that was really interesting. And I thought I was done with meditation because I was like, this is, at least for me, and I know a lot of people, a waste of time. And people make such a big deal out of it. And, since then, that was like almost 15 years ago. Since that time, I think if anything, meditation has become more popular, but I still think the majority of people get confused when they're trying to meditate and just and plain old don't like it. And I totally get that because it's boring and stupid the way people talk about it a lot of the time. And the way I'm going to talk about today is pretty boring, but I think you'll get something out of it because one reason that meditation doesn't satisfy us is that it seems too militant in a way. At least the background of meditation I have was very militant. Zen meditation is very militant. You're just sitting there and you just sit there for hours if you're on a retreat, hours and hours and hours, day after day sometimes. We used to have like 7-day silent retreats. We'd be meditating for like 10 or 12 hours a day. And it's not a lot. In Japan, Zen meditation, they meditate for like 18 hours a day, 19 hours a day when they're doing that kind of retreat. It seemed like a huge waste of time for me. And then, what first happened after that, a couple of years after that, I was exposed to Yuji Krishnamurti. He's one of my favorite spiritual teachers. He's like an anti-guru, and Yuji was basically like, meditation's evil. He said that jokingly. He said meditation is spiritual materialism, basically. People think something special is going to happen, and everybody gets on their high horse, and everybody's full of shit. And I was like, man, I can really relate to that. And as much as I liked the Zen community that I was, associated with for a while and lived in, and as much as I liked a lot of the Zen teachers I met, because I met many Zen teachers over the years, nonetheless, I saw the larger Zen community and how people talked about Zen seemed like a bunch of bullshit and spiritual materialism. And Zen's like the most chill form of meditation. This is to say nothing of people who are into TM or doing certain breathwork meditation, all these different things. If you do that stuff, I don't mean to offend you whatsoever. It's just there's a lot of bullshit in every meditation community, just like there's a lot of bullshit in all spiritual communities, right? So I was very unsatisfied about it. Yuji confirmed why I was unsatisfied. And I was just like done, with it. I was like, I don't need this. I can still contemplate things and be a spiritual person without meditating formally. I mean, that doesn't add anything to my life. And then I found Neville. And that was in 2014. And Neville's got what got me back into meditating. Um, because I had just never heard anybody talk about basically, when he's talking about sats, when Neville's talking about many of his exercises and assuming the state, he's talking about doing it from a meditative state. And I was like, well, something this guy is saying certainly makes sense to me. What he's saying about the imagination and how we think creating our reality makes a lot of sense to me. And what he suggests we do, sats basically, lying down and assuming you're in the state you want to be, that sounds like fun. And I've never had fun meditating, at least consistently. And so that sounds like fun. So Neville, that old sea dog, he pulled me back in. And, I'm really glad he pulled me back in. And not too long after that, I was experimenting with doing different Neville exercises and sats, and I had some success and I had many failures. And I realized rather quickly that this whole manifesting thing wasn't as streamlined and straightforward as most teachers make it seem, including Neville, as great as they are. But soon after I discovered Neville, I discovered Richard Dotz's approach to meditation. And I really lined up with that too. That really spoke to me because, while Neville was saying, try to assume the state and feel viscerally what you want, what you desire. Dotz was basically like, just chill out. Just chill out. He's like, that's the magic feeling, and Dotz is very inspired by Abraham Hicks. And so his thing was just, just get to that really comfortable place. And that's it. You're aligned with what you want already automatically if you do that. I was like, wow, that's mind blowing. And also something that really resonated. So I went from not meditating for probably 4 or 5 years to meditating basically again every day, but doing it in this much more flexible, relaxed way. Which, I wrote about a little bit in Relax More, Try Less, and wrote about more extensively, even though it wasn't that many words what I wrote, but I wrote about in the last section of The Joy of Not Thinking, where I was talking about vibing out. Vibing out is very similar to what we're going to talk about today. And heavily influenced by Dotz's recommendations about just feeling the magic feeling, relaxing into your seat, relaxing into your pillow, and just enjoying that feeling. No pressure, very nice. However, I have found both in my own life and working with clients that even somebody as loose as Dots, even his meditation instructions over the long term can often seem too hard. Meaning like, we'll want to relax, we'll want to feel the magic feeling, we'll literally just want to be like vibing out, doing nothing. But then our body won't cooperate. Our body will feel bad. Or even more so, our thinking will still be going and we'll be like, why am I thinking this way? I can't relax, da, 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 da. And, the vibing out approach that I talked about in The Joy of Not Thinking was kind of my recommendation for how to solve that. So you just have no pressure. But even with vibing out, I feel like there's almost subtly a pressure to be there, just relaxing into your pillow, relaxing into your chair. And I've been doing this thing that I mentioned in the video a few weeks ago recently, which brought home the point of something that's more simple than that, something that you can't, quote unquote, screw up. Something that I think is like the easiest form of meditation for most people. And the kind of meditation, I mean, anybody can vibe out, don't get me wrong. But what I'm about to describe and what I described in that video is even easier than that. And you will get something out of it. And we can talk about what you'll get out of it later. But I'm going to tell you right now that what you're going to get out of it is not what you think you're going to get out of it. It's much more important to do it. And this is how you do it. You just sit in your chair or sit on your couch or lie down on your couch, lie down in bed even, You get your cell phone or your timer, probably your cell phone, and you just say, I'm going to sit here for at least 5 minutes. If you're only doing this once a day, I would recommend doing it for 10 or 15 minutes. That's it. You literally just sit there. And I would probably suggest, if you're not used to meditating, to keep your eyes open, just because it's easier to kind of be there and not daydream and get sidetracked, or perhaps fall asleep or feel weird or have intrusive thoughts. If your eyes are open, it's easier to just kind of pay attention to what's going on right now. You don't have to. If it feels more right to close your eyes, you certainly can do that. But you just sit there, and you just sit there, and that's it. And I've started doing this again at night. I wasn't doing any long meditation exercise at night because I'm tired by the end of the day. But I started, I said, I'm going to do this, at least for like the next 40 days. I said, I'm going to sit for 15 minutes before bed or close to bedtime. Going to have the lamp on, or I'm going to go outside onto my porch. And I'm just going to sit there. I'm going to have my cell phone. I'm not going to look at my cell phone except to look at the time. And that's it. And the thoughts are going to come. The thoughts are going to go. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to sit there. And I can tell you, just doing this, I think I'm on day 17 today of doing this. Just doing this for like the last 2.5 weeks has been very nice. And I really feel confident it's the kind of technique that will work for most people. In the same way that I feel very confident that if you feel stressed out, if you jump up and down and get crazy with your body for a couple of minutes, you'll feel a little bit better. I feel almost as confident in saying that if you just sit for like 10 or 15 minutes and don't do anything and put no pressure on yourself to do anything, that something will happen. Maybe not as much as like jumping up and down like a crazy monkey. For that is like, that works for pretty much everybody I've seen. But something will happen if you just sit. And there's different ways of doing this. Something that Dots recommends in many of his books is like carving out like a 5 or 10 minute or even 15 minute. But if you're just starting, I would say 5 or 10 minutes, 3 times a day, carving out a 5 or 10 minute slot to just sit. But again, when he gives that recommendation, he's like, you kind of want to feel the magic feeling. That's too hard for a lot of us, including me. I mean, if I'm in the middle of the day, I'm not trying to conjure up or sink into the magic feeling. I'm just going to sit there. So yeah, I mean, if you can find, if you want to do this, you can do this. Let me start by saying that. If you can find the time to sit, to meditate like this, you just sit there for 5 minutes at a time, 3 times a day, I think will do something to your life. So you could do it in the morning, middle of the day sometime, and then in the evening, for instance. And, I also recommend one of those times trying to extend it some. So maybe do like 5 minutes in the morning, and then in the middle of the day, if you can find 5 minutes, or when you get home from work, find 5 minutes. And then before bed, do 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Or if you have the time and you feel motivated, you can do 10 or 15 minutes 3 times a day. I just feel like this works. It does something. It's not going to be this like grandiose special something or this esoteric something, but like in LOA and in manifesting, we hear so many people saying, I can't do the technique. And there's so many teachers saying, oh, this is what's supposed to happen when you do the technique. And the teachers are not giving good advice a lot of the time, in the sense that it's not what's going to happen for a lot of people. The majority of people probably who are getting the advice are not going to get the same result. And people are just meditating in I don't want to say the incorrect way, but in a harder way than they need to. The way we're describing here, just sitting there, for putting your timer and sitting there for 5, 10, 15 minutes, that's meditation. I'm sorry. I know some people are going to disagree, but that's meditation. The most simple kind, at least that I can think of. I mean, I'm no one special. There's maybe more simple kinds of meditation than this, but I really think you'll get some benefits by trying this out for even like even a week or even 3 days. Even 3 days. If you meditate in this way, let's say 5 minutes at a time, maybe try to do one for 10 minutes at the end of the day or something. If you do this for 3 days, I don't know. I think there'll be some kind of shift, or you'll notice something. Um, or if you do 15 minutes at night and just do that for a week, I bet you notice something. And it's probably not going to be what you think you would notice, but you'll notice something. And it goes well too with a lot of these other um, manifesting approaches that we talk about and techniques. It complements a lot of those other things well. But when we're doing this, we're just sitting there. We're just sitting there. We want to have a little bit of privacy just because we don't want people talking to us. We don't want to be on our phone. We don't want to be distracted from just sitting there. We don't want to be watching TV. We're just sitting there. So let's do that now. This is going to be just totally invigorating for you. Or maybe it'll be really boring. I suspect it to be more like the latter, which is good. Let's do it for 5 minutes. I'm not going to make you sit for 15 minutes on this live call. That will harken too much back to my Zen days for my liking. But let's just sit for 5 minutes. Where I am, it's 5:20, so we'll go to about 5:25. All right, let's start. And if you don't want to do this now, that's fine. Just I'm doing it. We're not going anywhere until I'm done doing it. So I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay. Absolutely scintillating. So that's it in terms of um, this approach. I can clarify nuances to it, but there really aren't nuances to it, generally speaking. But I'll gladly answer your questions about, um, what we just did and what I just talked about. And one thing that passed through my mind when I was just sitting there is like this for me is different than Zen meditation, because Zen meditation, even though I was quote unquote trying to do nothing, I was trying. You understand? I was still trying to sit upright and have my hands placed the correct way, and to be focused on my breathing. That's still trying. What we just did, we're not really trying to do much except keep the timer on and not talk to anybody. Easy. That's the kind of silence that most of us do not give ourselves in such like a non-judgmental, non-pressure filled way consistently. And you can do it. You just saw you could do it. So that's it. Do people have questions or comments?
Hi, Tim. It's Melissa Conti. I just
Hey,
felt
Melissa.
away. I felt away, like away from everything. I'm actually still sitting at work, and I'm in New York City hearing, horns. I'm just
Do you have
sort
a
of away
tornado there,
from.
Melissa?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, keep it up by you.
Yeah.
I just felt away from all of it. It was very pleasant, I got to tell you. After the day I just had, it was really nice.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean that's what's been happening to me some evenings, or a lot of the evenings I've been doing it. It's like exactly that. You feel away. However, I don't want to project that as saying that's what's going to happen to everybody. But that's a great example and reason enough to do an exercise like this, I think. So
It
thank you
was
for
very
sharing that.
nice. And then, right before sleep, I also felt like going to sleep. I go, this wouldn't look very good, but yeah. So
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. Yeah. And it probably, if you do it before bed, I think it quiets your mind down. You want to make sure you don't do it when you're really sleepy, because you will fall asleep. And that's why for some people, it's probably better to do it earlier in the day or in the morning or what have you, if you're going to do one of those longer, 15-minute sessions or what have you.
Yeah, I like what you said about the not judging yourself, because I went to this retreat a couple of years ago, and we would do like these cross-legged meditations, and I hated it. Like I hated sitting cross-legged. It was super uncomfortable, and I'd always kind of like beat myself up because I felt like I wasn't doing the breathing correctly, or whenever my thoughts would kind of get out of control. And so I kind of like the do nothing aspect of this. And personally, I mean, I think meditation is something you can kind of do throughout the day. And I find physical activity to be very meditative. And so I like, like when I'm doing my walks, I like kind of repeating different mantras and affirmations to myself. But yeah, I'm glad that we did this together, because I saw the video that you put out about this, but I couldn't quite justify doing nothing. So, so this was like a good motivator.
Good. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Kate. Yeah, I mean, that's why I wanted to have this follow-up, group session. Yeah, and I mean, this is the irony of like a lot of those meditation traditions, Zen, but a lot of the others too. It's like they're saying do nothing, or like, don't, you don't have to do anything. But then there's this subtle subconscious pressure that I think a lot of us feel when we're in those settings where there's this pressure there. And it's because we're around other people and we're judging ourselves, and they might not be judging us, but we just feel like we're doing something wrong. And quite often they are judging us. I've been to a lot of different retreats before, and if you're really into that stuff, that's great. But my opinion about a lot of that stuff now, pardon my French, is fuck that shit. I mean, like, it's not helpful for me. But everybody is different. And like you say, I mean, people can meditate in so many different ways. Movement, is a huge thing, a huge way, almost a secret way to really access flow in your life. And that's what we talk about all the time. But slowing down like this with no pressure, I just think it's solid. I think it's a solid way to do it. And you really shouldn't feel bad about it. Think about how much time we waste each day, you could say, if you want to use that word, and you're beating yourself up. I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying, we beat ourselves up for like taking 10 minutes to just sit there. You might get your most creative ideas when you're sitting there doing nothing, or what have you. Again, I'm not saying this what's going to happen to everybody, but just solid, simple technique. It's just a quiet group today. I love it. It's getting darker on the horizon where I am, by the way. So.
Oh, Tim, I just wanted to mention it's Melissa again. When I'm on a call, it's never quiet. I was speaking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about meditation. I was telling her I was excited about this seminar, and she said, "Well, I meditate and I clear my thoughts for at least 15 minutes." I'm like, "Well, good for you." It was so
Right.
egoic. It's like
exactly. Yeah, the egoic thing is that we see that all the time. So many of these meditators seem like such selfish, egotistical people. And that's why I see all these nothing against, like, high-powered CEOs and stuff. I'm talking about, I meditate and do all this stuff. And who was it, Jack Dorsey or whoever, the Twitter guy, like how he would, meditate in caves with, the monks in Nepal and stuff. It's like, that's cool. But that's got nothing to do with what these people are doing in their lives. I feel like there's a disconnect. So for me, meditation takes me away from myself, and I really like that. It's very impersonal. And when the personality gets involved with it, I question the validity of that person. And that's a whole other conversation in a way, because you can interpret Neville's recommendations as being very personal. It's completely subjective, a subjective conviction. What does that mean, that type of personal? And I'm not criticizing Neville's approach towards it at all. It's a fantastic approach, but the way it's interpreted, it's you see people like on social media being like, I've mastered Neville's techniques and I'm a master manifester. And that's too self-centered, egoic. It's not, I don't think it's what Neville meant. Yeah. So this kind of thing that we're doing here is not, you're not going to be talking to your friends about how you clear your mind for 15 minutes a day. I don't understand that. People who can clear their mind like that, just do it all the time then. Clear your mind. I would just clear my mind constantly then. I'd be cleared. I don't see that. I don't believe it. I guess I'm skeptical, but when people say that, they UG used to say, when the self goes, you go. And then there's no mind to clear, I guess you could say. So I don't know. Take from that what you will. And again, I don't mean to be bad mouthing meditators at large or certain approaches. I'm very, very grateful to the Zen meditation background I had. I do not think I would appreciate these LOA teachers and ideas nearly as much or at all if I found them without my Zen background. And I still like, there's a lot of great teachers in that space and in other meditation spaces. So yeah. Do people have any other comments about this? It's very understandable if you do not. And if people don't, we can talk about other things for a while, meaning more of the stuff we usually talk about in group sessions. This is the main thing I wanted to share here, was just how simple this approach is. Yeah, Philip.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you for today, and great to be here. And I wondered, is it possible to have moments of this during the day, during things that we would do in a ritualized or process type work? Because I find myself doing that, like at my day job or driving, just clearing things out and being still. And I just Googled the word meditate, like the etymology, which I always do at times like this, and it says to contemplate on, or to mull over, or to reflect upon, if you like.
Yeah.
Because I can often just be still, and in apparent chaos around me, I can just start to be still for periods of time, might be seconds, and rather than necessarily sit for 15, 20 minutes.
Of course, you can definitely do that. This technique is just to really, like, if you give yourself at least 5 minutes a couple of times a day, or like 15 minutes at one time, I just think it's enough to do something. But if you have the ability to do that for a few seconds or longer, minutes, hours, whatever, at work, by all means, that's terrific. And you might find by doing this exercise alongside that, it might be able to deepen the work, those moments and those minutes at work as well. But of course, yeah, I mean, again, utilize it however you like. This is not saying like, this is how to meditate. Obviously not. It's just, we want to find, I think most of us, at least on this call, want to find that calmness and serenity in our day-to-day life more, right? We're trying to find that as much as we can, generally speaking. And if you can find it at work, if you can find it in situations that are stressful for most people, all the more power to you. I mean, that's it. Again, just common sense, right? I mean, that's great. And that, that again, the definition of meditation that's a wonderful definition, so yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so is that it for the meditation section of this? And maybe for the call in general? I doubt that, but you never know. It looks like we're done with the meditation section. We can obviously come back to it. But yeah, unless the storm worsens, we can keep on going for longer. So yeah, does anybody have any more general questions about the stuff we usually talk about? Manifesting, spirituality, stress management, mindfulness. I guess we just talked about mindfulness, right? Maybe not. This is unbelievable. What a bunch of meditators we are.
I have a question, Tim.
Yes.
First of all, my name is Jonah and I'm from Turkey and I love your videos. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Jonah. Thank you.
Now, I have one thing that boggles my mind lately. This has been happening for more than a month. I've been a smoker for more than 10 years. I never had any problem with it. But in these last couple of weeks or months, whenever I light a cigarette and start smoking, I hear sounds in the outside world, like motor sounds or car sounds. So it feels like what I do with my body affects the outside world. But the link between these two things are not clear to me. It's not obvious. Do you have any experience with that? Do you have any idea about this?
When did you first start noticing it?
At most 2 months,
Okay.
not longer.
And so you just noticed that like whenever you lit a cigarette, you would hear a noise, an external, like a car or something like that.
Not exactly when I light a cigarette, but exactly when I inhale the smoke.
Okay. Yep.
There's noise outside.
Yeah. My first recommendation would be don't worry about it. In terms of why it's happening, some people on this call, we've got some heavy hitters on this call. They might be able to say more intelligent things than I can about it. One reason it could be happening is because it's something you became aware of and you expect it to happen, and your reticular activation system is playing into it, and it's like a loop that you've created. It seems like a relatively harmless loop, except if you're worried about it. I mean, just noises outside when you inhale a cigarette are not necessarily the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? But I don't have much more insight to give you, except I personally would say, don't worry about it. And that it's probably tied in some way to your reticular activation system. And we can get much more far out with the explanations. People can share if they want to that are on the call, some of their thoughts about it. But yeah, Jonah, I mean, that's pretty much, I'm sorry, I can't give you more in terms of insight there.
I would also like to add some more interesting facts about this, about
Sure.
my inhalation and how it affects the outside world. Not just by sound, it also affects how the sky looks, believe it or not. I mean, these are subjective experiences, and I won't go and try to, photograph the sky just right after I smoke, how it looks, and before I smoke, how it looks. I'm not going to try to do that because I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone, but I'm just telling you this strange experience. When I smoke a cigarette, I will see more clouds, and they will appear very quickly. It's like there's a direct connection between what I do with my breath, not with my body. I mean, when I eat, nothing really happens out in the outside world, or when I do other things, or when I
Right.
exercise, nothing really gets better in the outside world. But when I smoke, either a cigarette or weed or other kinds of things, I see direct effects of it, both visually, and I can even hear it.
Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, does anyone have anything they want to share in that regard? I mean, it's the kind of thing where personally, I think if it was happening to me, I would just see what happens with it. And I would try my best not to get concerned about it, you know?
Yeah.
But weird things happen. And, you know, whether it's the mind, the breath is connected to the mind, right? But whether it's that or something, I don't know. But if you can look at it as an interesting, curious thing, as an advantage to be aware of it, as opposed to some something that is concerning, you can turn it into something that's very interesting and favorable for you. Does anyone else have anything to say about this, about Jonah's inhalations?
Well, I guess the dopamine hit might intensify everything. So you may be desensitized a lot of the time, or it might be dulled a lot of the time because of having the nicotine at irregular times. And then when the hit comes, there's a big head rush. So that might be what you're experiencing, everything intensified and a lot more of it in that moment, and then it just dimming away again. And I wonder if you weren't doing it, if you would be seeing things much more like that, really intense all the time.
What did you say in the last sentence? What would you
I
wonder?
wonder if you weren't doing it at all, if you would see things much more intensely all the time. It would probably take time for that to happen, because initially everything would seem very dull without that intense hit every now and then. But over time, probably, this is only a theory, I'm not 100% sure. I'm just guessing at it. It would be interesting
thank
to
you. I
know.
understand. Yeah, but as a smoker for more than 10 years, and I'm coming from a family of smokers, and actually a lot of my friends were or still are smokers.
Yeah.
I never experienced anything like this, and we actually don't get a huge rush from it. We don't get a huge dopamine. This is not a great dopamine hit, actually. For a smoker,
Well,
a
it's not
cigarette
one that
is
you know,
very
but
minor.
it's what you would be very, very used to it. So you may not notice it because you're very used to it, but that effect will still be happening. So I just wonder if that is anything to do with it.
To me, it seems like it's more of a it's actually confusing for me. That's why I asked the question, because I have no idea how the sky is connected to my how it can be connected to my what do you call these organs, these two lungs? Yes. So it doesn't make sense to me, actually. I'm probably wrong about making the connection also. I mean, I kept saying it, but there might still not be a connection. But I saw it enough times to come here and ask about this. But I can hardly believe it's about the brain, because when I inhale the smoke, directly I start to hear a car sound or a bad sound, just something just noisy coming out from outside my house. And then the clouds, suddenly they appear. There are more clouds. Even when I smoke in a cloudless day, when there's a clear sky and I smoke, and now there are clouds. In just 5 minutes, the clear sky is gone and there are clouds. So it's just very interesting for me. I'm not too concerned, but a little bit concerned maybe, because I don't want to affect the outside world so directly. I just want to smoke my cigarette and pass my days.
Thank you for that insight too, Kate. That was I think that was helpful. Yeah, I mean, I do think, Jonah, there's got to be something with the brain. Your mind is playing a part in this for sure. It's just it might be very subtle, subconscious, right? But the behavior of that, the physical action, the habitual physical action, it's connected with the mind in some way. And I think that's a pretty good idea of Kate's, of just seeing what would happen if you stopped for a few days or not. I mean, just see if it's, again, I don't mean to be like, if you're not concerned, it doesn't matter. If you're concerned, try to not smoke as much for a few days and see what happens. Yeah, good stuff. I mean, this is the kind of thing, when we have these group talks, there's no one answer or right answer, right? It's more like we're trying to get different viewpoints and opinions of something like this. This is like it will just play itself out. I think it's fine. Don't be worried that you're affecting the outside world and causing clouds for other people. This is very interesting, everyone, as you pushed out. Got one right here. Example. Yeah. Is it anything right now, Jonah, or no? Are you hearing something or seeing something? Good. Okay.
Well, it's actually midnight, so even if I look, I won't probably see the
Right,
sky.
but are you hearing
clearly.
anything? Are you hearing noises?
Oh, for sure, yeah. The car noises come even at this hour, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Car noises come still.
Yeah.
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 There's a weird synchronization between this and that.
Yeah. I do wonder what role, if any, your self-suggestion is playing into that. Not in like again, I don't mean that negatively. I mean that more in like, we suggest things to ourselves so quickly, so rapidly, that, for instance, and I'm not saying this is the case, but like the noises were there before. Once you smoke, once you inhale, you become more aware of it, expect it, and you become consciously aware. And it seems like it's happening right now and it wasn't happening before, but perhaps the sound was there before. Perhaps, who knows? It's just, that's like, the unconscious, the subconscious, which we use synonymously in the law of attraction, usually very quick and sneaky. So that's something to consider too. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying that's something you can consider. Yeah. Thank you again, Jonah. Thank you for staying up too. Hopefully we gave you a little bit of insight into it. Even a lack of insight is insight, though, when it comes to this stuff. Next group call, I hope you can join and give us an update too.
All right.
Excellent. Anyone else have anything they want to share? No pressure. Yeah, Kate Finley wrote, yes, when we observe a pattern and then an expectation is set, it can create a loop. And with what Kate said, anything we take into our bodies can affect the filter through which we perceive reality. Yeah, I very much agree. The body's so sensitive, and suggestibility is such a key part of our lives, and we don't realize it a lot of the time. That's why, like, when Neville talks about imagination and being so powerful, a key reason for that, in my opinion, is just because the degree of suggestibility that we're under for both good and bad is far greater than most of us even begin to recognize. This again is something that Kue probably explains better than anybody. But it's very interesting when we start to play into an expectation, what then happens. And I think we want to teach ourselves how to be better at playing into positive expectations and not playing into, or just, yeah, that's actually a great way of looking at it, like not playing into negative expectations. Like you don't want to play that game. You don't want to be stuck in that negative loop about something. Easier said than done, but by becoming more aware of that pattern and either affirming the opposite of it or looking at the pattern and feeling it and asking it what it means, we can start to neutralize a lot of that negative habitual suggestions that we make to ourselves, and then feel better simply by neutralizing it, not playing that game, not playing that loop as much. Yeah. All right. So I'll stay on for a couple more minutes if anyone has any other questions, but then we'll wrap up. And yeah, again, just to circle back to, this meditation approach. If you already have a meditation practice that you like, or you're already doing something like what Philip does, where he already has these moments of real presence during the day. I'm not saying to do this, that this is for everybody and everybody has to do this at all. It's just a very good thing to know about. If you feel overwhelmed, if you feel you want to create some distance between who you think you are and what's actually happening right now. And it's the kind of thing that you can experiment with for yourself. And like I said, I feel very confident that even if you do this for just a couple of days, you'll notice an effect in your life. It'll probably be subtle, but it will be something. And especially for people who have wanted to meditate and have not found a satisfying way to meditate, this is one of the easier ways to start to meditate that I know of. And I think it will bring you some satisfaction. And one other thing I want to note about it that I didn't say is that when you're sitting there, a lot of us will have, especially at first, like the first couple of minutes, this is why I say do it for at least 5 minutes, preferably for longer. You can have a lot of thoughts perhaps that say, this is stupid, I'm wasting my time. This is stupid, I'm wasting my time. Why am I doing this? This is a waste of time. I'm just sitting here. This has maybe worked for me before. It's not going to work this time. This is something that might occasionally work for some people, but it's not going to work for me. The whole point is you can acknowledge those thoughts. You can also just ignore them, regardless of whether you acknowledge or ignore them, whatever words you want to use, you just keep on sitting there for the time that you've set on your phone. They're going to shift out. The thought's going to change. And that's part of the power of this technique, is that you see the thoughts change. And you do, it seems like, create some kind of distance or space for you to just be you right there in the moment. So yeah, I like that. Any other questions? Oh, Gloria's got a question. Yes. Oh, this is a great question. Yeah. So do you do your success indicator separately from your meditation, or can you do a combination of these two techniques? Wonderful question. I think I mentioned this in the video, that this ties in also to like the success indicator of W. Clement Stone. We have a whole playlist with videos talking about the success indicator. I now, Gloria, to answer your question, since I've been doing this 15-minute thing at night, I have a success indicator. I do a short success indicator now. So I spend a couple minutes in the morning and a couple minutes in the evening. And I basically like have a couple statements written down, and I might mark like how I feel about them, or like how relaxed I feel that day, or how I felt that day. So in the morning, I might, like, for my success indicator, I might read it and like try to tune into it. For instance, like right now, my success indicator, like I've got a few like affirmations, but like the main one, the one I like tune into, is basically like, I am one with God. So I'll tune into that for a minute or two. I'll read my other affirmations. If there's anything that comes up that I note, I'll write that down in the morning. And then in the evening, I'll look at that paper, the day's entry again. And I do it before the 15 minutes. So I'll say, I'll at night is when I jot down, like, how relaxed did I feel today? Was I really stressed out? That'd be like a 1. Or like, was I really relaxed? Like really vibing? That'd be like a 10, right? And usually it's not in those two extremes. It's much more like middle ground, right? Like between like 4 and 7 or 8 or something like that. And we all have our own scales, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I'll jot down that number, look at the statements, tune into that statement, like, I am one with God for a minute or two. After I've done all that, I'll put that journal down and I'll sit for 15 minutes and just sit. If there's something profound that comes up, hasn't happened yet in these 17 days, I'll write that in the success indicator. My more profound insights, I don't write in my success indicator. I write them in a separate notebook, like my journal, with just like more meaningful observations that I'm going to come back to more frequently than my success indicator. If you're doing the more intensive real success indicator of W. Clement Stone, going to be a little bit different. You're going to be sitting for longer, 15 or 30 minutes, reflecting on something you want or something you desire. And you're going to be thinking, even though it's a very relaxed meditative state, you're going to be doing something then. You're going to be thinking on your behavior for the day or what you want to happen. You're going to be thinking specifically on that, which is different than this exercise where you're not thinking about anything. I mean, if thoughts about your day or what you want to do come up, that's fine. But the point is not to do that. You don't have to do anything. You can, it's fine. You can do whatever you want when you're sitting there mentally. Just don't talk to anybody. Don't look at your phone. Just sit there, see the thoughts come and see them go. So I think they're actually two separate things. And like I said, I really just do a mini success indicator now. The real success indicator of stones is something that's more intensive, at least 15, probably 30 minutes a day where you're contemplating your ideals and your behavior. So they're different, in my opinion. Great question. Glad that we got that in here. So yeah, I'll conclude by just saying that, the two things that have really worked well for me in my life in regards to feeling better are speeding way up, like I talked about, and Stop Being Serious and The Joy of Not Thinking, through movement, often playful movement, but it can just be movement in general. Speed and, movement also can be like very animated, out loud conversations with yourself, but getting out of that normal energetic loop into something much more active. That's always worked really well for me. And the other thing that's always worked really well for me is becoming really still. And that is a more subtle process. As I said, it's not going to happen, like feeling better from doing that is not going to necessarily happen nearly as quickly as playfully getting active, but it's in many ways a more all-encompassing act then, because you take it with you more the rest of your day if you're just kind of accessing that stillness. And what I've learned over the years is that the less pressure I put on myself when I'm still or trying to be still, the more effective it tends to be. And so what I'm sharing, in this session here is really like, there's just no pressure. So I think that's why I've been personally liking doing it more over the last 2.5 weeks, but it ties right into any type of non-pressure stillness that you want in your life. And that can also be, like Philip alluded to, when you're doing tasks at work or washing the dishes or doing the laundry or whatever, where you're just there and you're not putting any pressure on yourself to go from point A to B. And this ties back into the Zen thing, where you just are doing daily, small, mundane things. And that in itself is an enlightenment that ties together with that. So it's all connected in that way. But think about, if you don't feel good, think about, what's something I can do to speed up, or what's something I can do to really slow down. I give that metaphor in Stop Being Serious series I talked about elsewhere of like, a car can go, when it's driving, can go between, well, really like a 0 and 150 miles an hour, right? But if you're on like a normal side road, you're going to be probably going about 30 miles an hour. But you can always, if you need to get somewhere fast, you can drive 60. You might get pulled over, but if you really, if someone's hurt, you're going to drive 60 on that side road, even though it's double the normal speed people go. And if you're feeling tired, you're going to pull over. You're going to stop. You're going to get still. We stay at 30 miles an hour too often when we have the ability to speed up if we need to, or slow down and stop if we need to. And we just don't do it as much as we can. So think about that and consider that as a way to look at ways to change how you feel, change your state. Anyone else have anything else to say? Otherwise, that's it for today. This has been really a good meeting of the minds and bodies and lungs. Yeah, any follow-up questions, as always, feel free to email me. You can just email me at my personal email at radicalcounselor@gmail.com, or my business email info@radicalcounselor.com. But yeah, I'll talk to everybody again soon. We'll have another one of these probably in the near future. And yeah, until next time, thank you for being live. And if you're watching a recording, thank you for watching the recording. Take it easy, everybody. Bye.